Charles here. 2022 micro set two number two. All right, it's been a long time coming, but finally we had what we call a world price FRQ that showed us exporting something. Let's see if we can make sense of this. Calculate the consumer surplus if New Zealand does not trade with the rest of the world. So what we know is consumer surplus is everything above the price, but below demand. So if this is the price with no trade right there, $40, it's everything above the price, but below the demand circle. All of this would be consumer surplus. So it looks like and this is just the area of a triangle, right? So it's 1/2 base times height. Looks like our height is what, 30? Our base is 300. 30 times 300, what is that? 9,000, and divided by 2, 4,500. All right, easy enough. I think we're done with that. Instead, assume New Zealand decides to trade wool in the market. How do we say that? In the world market. I got you. I had a brain fart there. Current price of wool is $60 per unit. So let's just draw a line across here. That's the price of wool right now. Well, recognize that if they trade with the world market, they can get $60 per unit of goods. So they're going to supply that much of the good, right? In essence, this is the quantity supplied. This is the quantity demanded domestically. Our domestic consumers would only want 100 units of this, but all of this area from here to here, that's all exports. We're going to export that out of the country because people are willing to pay for it. So it's the difference between 500 and 100. They're going to export 400 units of wool there. What will happen to the consumer surplus of wool in New Zealand when New Zealand begins to trade with the rest of the world? Our domestic supplier or domestic consumers, right? So if this was the original price and all of this whole triangle here was originally consumer surplus, well, after the price goes up and they export this, only this little triangle right here is everything above the new price, below the demand curve. So we can see that our consumer surplus has gotten smaller, not only because the price has gotten larger, right? Price goes up, consumer surplus has to go down. And I think that's exactly what we're looking for there. That as we know the price goes up, we know they're going to export. As those price goes up, our consumers, the quantity demanded that our consumers actually want decreases to that 100 units right there. All right. Will total economic surplus in New Zealand increase, decrease, or remain the same? So when we're talking about total economic surplus, we're talking about producer and consumer surplus, right? So originally, the price was $40. All of this was consumer and all that was producer surplus. So let's figure out before trade what was our total surplus. Before trade, our total surplus, which just means all of our consumer plus our producer surplus, was, what is that, 30 times 3. Didn't we already do this? Yeah, 4,500. So I'm assuming that 30, and this is the same thing. So we'll just double this. So we know all of our consumer trade originally was $9,000. Now when we start trading with the world, that's our price of wool. This is our consumer surplus. But all of this area here, remember, if we're doing producer surplus, it's everything below the price, but above the supply curve. So everything below the price but above the supply curve. So all of that triangle now, due to the exporting, is what we call producer surplus. So let's see if we can do our consumer surplus here is, what is that, 10 and 100. 10 times 100, what is that, 1,000, right? And then our producer surplus, which is huge now, looks like the height is 50, the base is 500, right? Oops, this wasn't 1,000. 10 times 100, it would have been 500, right? That was our consumer surplus. And then now back to 50, 500. Yeah, 5 times 5, 25, 1, 2, 3. Divided by 2, right? So 2,500, what is that? 13, no, 12,500. So 13,000. From 9 before trade, we had 9. After trade, we have a total surplus of 13,000. So 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 looks like we gained 4,000 of total surplus. I mean, obviously, we can recognize that our consumers have lost, but our producers have gained. So when we're talking total surplus, it's both of those and what happened with the change. All right, and we want to make sure we use the numbers so they can see that we've done our work. Now assume that domestic demand in New Zealand increases. Demand increases, right? Will New Zealand's exports increase, decrease, or stay the same? What we should recognize here is that if demand increases, that's going to drive the price up, and that's going to imply that if the price goes up, our consumers are going to want more of this good, right? So if consumers want more of this good, that would mean exports have to decrease. Am I happy with that explanation? Let me think about that for just a second. And my demand has increased. And if demand increases, the supply's not changed, even if the price is still $60. That's all that's going to be produced when that price is $60. What we see is our consumers have bought more of this good. So let's say it like this. Demand increased, will their exports has to decrease? Because I would say consumer demand, consumers are buying more of this good, therefore there has to be less for exports. So decrease, I think it is. And I'll check that to make sure that I'm on the right, that I haven't flipped that around in my brain. All right, I hope that made sense. Keep working hard, guys, and I'll see you soon. If you need help, tutoring, anything, Wyzant, you're looking for Charles W. and Wyzant. Take care, be safe, work hard.